Hello and welcome to the Sit 'em Stardom podcast for week 10. I'm your host, Josh Shepardson, and you can follow me on Twitter where I post is at BChat50. And let's jump right into things with a quarterback that should be riding your pine after a very good showing in week 9. Rookie Marcus Mariota draws a significantly tougher assignment this week. He got to beat up on Rob Ryan's joke of a defense for the Saints. This week, he's facing the second best pass defense in terms of yards per pass attempt allowed, and in terms of second pass defense ranking, according to Football Outsiders, and that's the Carolina Panthers. He is at home, but that Panthers defense is nails. They've been trouble for all opposing quarterbacks this year. Josh Norman's been a revelation at cornerback, and likely without Kendall Wright, he's going to once again be without one of his top pass catchers. So not really enough weapons for me to feel good about him getting the better of very talented Panthers secondary. So while it probably pains you to put him back on your bench after such a strong showing, I think you have to. Really hasn't done a lot with his legs to make you feel better about the fact that maybe he can pile up some points rushing as opposed to just having to throw the ball. So I'm going to go ahead and say sit Marcus Mariota this week and move on to the running back position, where I'm going to advocate sitting another guy who's been playing well recently, and that's Charcandrick West. Charcandrick West has put together back-to-back very strong games after laying an egg, basically, in his first shot to replace Jamal Charles due to injury. But he gets a really, really tough assignment this week. Much like the Panthers, the Broncos' pass defense has been really good. But unlike the Panthers, the Broncos' run defense has also been really, really good. They're allowing just 3.5 yards per carry this year to opposing running backs, or to opposing runners, period. And that's the second lowest total in the league. The Football Outsiders ranks the Broncos 6th defending the run. So really a very tough assignment. And as if things weren't bad enough, the Broncos are favored at home, and that means that it could be a game of catch-up for the Chiefs' offense, and that's going to mean Alex Smith airing it out. Maybe if you're in a PPR league, that can work out to West's favor if he gets some dump-off passes, since Alex Smith isn't exactly the type to take chances down the field. But overall, I think the ceiling is really low. I think the floor is also really low. If you have viable options, if your team hasn't been so ravaged by injury that you're forced to stick Charcandrick West out there, I would say you're best off sticking him on the bench. But I understand the number of injuries around the league. That may not be possible. But in terms of guys that I feel comfortable starting, West is not one of them. Next up is teammate Jeremy Maclin getting the bench treatment from me as well. Keep Talib is going to be suspended, or is suspended for this week. That suspension was not overturned. That means the Broncos secondary is going to be down Talib, but they still have Chris Harris Jr. back there. They still have Bradley Roby. They still have a talent at every level of that defense. They get after the quarterback. The Chiefs do a bad job of protecting their quarterback, Alex Smith. So if Smith's son is back, you can't very well get the football to Maclin. And if Chris Harris Jr. is assigned to take away Jeremy Maclin, that's going to make it a long day. Not sure if he'll shadow Maclin. We'll have to wait and see on that. But the fact that the secondary is as talented as it is, even with out Aqib Talib, I feel very good about the Broncos shutting down that passing attack for the Chiefs, and that means a bad day for Jeremy Maclin, who's had a good first season with the Chiefs reuniting with Andy Reid, but not a good week to get him out there. I think there are so many receiving options around the league, and even in deeper leagues, you should be able to find a guy with a more favorable matchup that projects to score just a little bit more than Maclin this week. Finally, for the sit-em section, we're going to round things out at tight end by advocating sitting Charles Clay. Clay got off to a great start this season with Tyrod Taylor under center, but last week Tyrod Taylor threw just 12 passes. Only one of those was directed at Charles Clay. Was reeled in for 6 yards, but certainly not going to pay the fantasy bills with a one reception, 6 yard effort from Clay. Didn't find the end zone on that one reception. And the fact is, the Bills very much want to go ground and pound and play defense. Probably going to have to air it out a little bit more tonight than they normally would, because the Jets' run defense is stout, but they are also tough on opposing tight ends. and they've allowed the 10th fewest fantasy points to tight ends. So tough matchup for Charles Clay. I'm going to say sit him. There are some other borderline tight end starting options that I think have a significantly higher ceiling and probably a higher floor as well. Getting on to the positive side of things, because I always like getting the bad news first and then getting the good news second. Good news is we've got some very startable options this week, starting at quarterback with Blake Bortles. If you checked out the podcast for streamers and waiver wires, or you checked out the article for that, for streamers and waiver wires, you know I love Blake Bortles. You realize that I believe he's under-owned, and this week he looks like a top 10 scorer against a Ravens defense that cannot stop the pass. Bortles on pace for over 4,300 yards passing and 34 touchdowns. Cupcake matchup against a team that is struggling to defend receivers. Bortles does a great job of getting the ball to his receivers, the Allens, as they are widely known now. Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns torching the opposing secondaries. Both have easy assignments this week. And oddly, the Jaguars 5.5-point underdogs against a Ravens team that's without Steve Smith Sr. If they are put in a position to air it out this week, which it appears odds makers expect them to be, Bortles going to be airing it out plenty and going to pile on the fantasy points this week. Next up at running back is a guy whose stock just keeps going up, 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 and that's James Starks. Already had a stock on the rise with Eddie Lacy's poor play. Bypassed Eddie Lacy for the team lead in rushing yards on the season last week. Now he's been announced as the starter for the Packers. And I believe it was either NFL Insiders or NFL Live, Ed Werder of ESPN reported that Eddie Lacy's playing at almost 260 pounds right now. And I believe that the weight that he said that the team would prefer he play at is 235, might have been 245. Either way, Eddie Lacy well overweight, and it's showing in his lack of production this year. Starks has been the much better back. The Packers are huge favorites this week, double-digit favorites, the biggest betting favorites of the week this week against the Lions. So going to be some garbage time late, going to be some opportunities for Starks to touch the ball and salt that lead away. So do like Starks this week. He's also viable in the passing attack, which is an added bonus for those in PPR leagues. Next up is Jordan Matthews against the Dolphins. It's been an up-and-down year for Matthews. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype and the expectations of the breakout that was expected after a good showing last year. Jeremy Maclin's departure had a lot of people expecting Matthews would really have a huge season this year. Not exactly the case. He's having a good season, and he is pacing the team in all major receiving categories. But this week in particular, he looks like a great play against Miami Dolphins, who just got torched by another second-year receiver, Sammy Watkins. They've had no answer for number one receivers. Football Outsiders ranks them dead last defending number one. So I like Matthews to torch Brent Grimes and the Dolphins this week. Get him in your lineups. Finally, we're going to look at tight end and another second-year player, man. These second-year players are really taking the league by storm, I guess you could say. Eric Ebron is going to be the beneficiary of the Detroit Lions being double-digit underdogs against the Packers. I mean, it's going to be time for Matthew Stafford to air it out. Calvin Johnson's the number one there. Golden Tate's going to get his. The running backs, Theo Riddick, Amir Abdullah, probably also going to be involved. But Eric Ebron should get some too, and he's averaging almost 50 yards receiving per game. He's caught a touchdown in half the games that he's played this year, averaging right around 4 receptions per game. And he's facing a defense that hasn't been great shutting down tight ends, so not exactly a cushy matchup, but certainly not one that's scary. And Ebron has played at a level that makes him a fringe tight end one most weeks, but this week he has a favorable matchup, favorable game flow that should work in his favor, and that's enough to get him on the right side of the fringe this week and get him into your starting lineups. That's going to wrap things up. Check out fantasyfootballcafe.com for all of your fantasy football needs. We've got articles, podcasts, and a very active forum with some knowledgeable fantasy football enthusiasts like yourself. So get on there, get chatting, have a good time, and good luck this week.